A nice meeting, so I will do so. We'll close the executive session and open the public meeting. And I'll start by reading the advisory committee schedule. The BIAC meeting, the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, is June 26th at 4 p.m. You can join that by Zoom. Go to our website and you'll find the link. And it is in person and by Zoom. It's at the airport, at the Aircraft Rescue Firefighting Station, 2005 West Bakerview Road in Bellingham. And that's the BIAC, the Bellingham International Airport. The Marine Advisory Committee, the MAC, is September 16th at 6 p.m. That's here and in person only. And that's here at the Harbor Center. No address, but we know where we are. And now we'll open the meeting to public comment. Anybody wishing to comment before this Port Commission has a right to. We have opened up, would appreciate a 3-minute comment. We appreciate if the audience did not respond to comments. Everybody should feel free to say their piece without intimidation or harassment. So anybody wishing to speak before the commission, and I will start with the list that was signed in the back, and that will be Jane Bright. Are you gonna thank us for the train whistles? Are you?
Can you hear me?
I can't see you, but I can.
Can I take it out, or I don't know?
You can.
Anyway, that's going to end up on the floor. Anyway, I just wanted to come. I know. That's so much better. Yes, thank you. No, I know Gene Shannon was here some time ago, shortly after the train crossing upgrades were done. I was not able to accompany him at that point, but I wanted to come and just tell you the kinds of comments that we're getting as a result of this. And basically, people are surprised at what a difference having those horns quieted. And I've been in the trenches with you guys on a lot of this, and this was one of these Herculean efforts that required an army of people to do it. So when people thank me, I'm embarrassed because it took an army, including all of you and staff, down the engineers, everybody who worked on this, and sometimes dealing with indifferent or hostile would-be partners during this process. And people are really focused on the quality of life difference that it makes. I don't want to lose sight of the safety improvements that came along with that work, and actually the health improvements. As I harped on before, noise is a well-documented source of stress, sleep deprivation, concentration issues for kids, and having that reduced substantially has made a huge effort. And I want to acknowledge that and thank you all, because this went on way longer and was much harder than it should have been. And I thank you and thank everybody at the port for sticking with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for your advocacy on this, and we'll keep working for that north side one.
All right, anyone else in the audience or anybody online wishing to speak?
Laura Weiss is online.
Laura?
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Can you hear us?
I do hear you. Do you hear me?
We hear you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So my name is Laura Weiss, and I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but I'm speaking on behalf of Walk and Roll Bellingham. We're a nonprofit organization, and we advocate for safer pedestrian and cycling facilities that people of all ages and abilities can use comfortably. And I'm here this afternoon to voice our continued support and enthusiasm for the port accepting the WTA grant to purchase and install bike lockers at both the Amtrak terminal and the airport. We're strong supporters of safe and accessible bike parking, and we're excited to see this progress after speaking to you on the topic back in November of 23. When people feel comfortable leaving their bikes at train stations and airport, it encourages more bike trips to those locations, which are both within easy biking distance from most neighborhoods in Bellingham. We have 2 points we just want to stress that we believe will make these installations successful and ensure that the port gets the best outcome from the grant funds. Number 1 is to please install a bike locker system that uses the same front-end reservation and payment system that's currently used by the city. This will ensure familiarity and ease of use by the most number of people. Having different systems or apps could create confusion and frustration by users who are expecting a similar system as to what they may have used in the past. The second thing is to please locate the lockers where they are highly visible and convenient to access to ensure that the most number of users can access it. SeaTac places their bike and mobility parking inside the baggage claim terminal, where it's secure, visible, and easy to access when returning from a flight. It's also easy for employees to use it in that location, and they don't have to worry about standing in the rain while locking up or packing up to get home. So we would stress visible and accessible locations that are close to the departure area or baggage claim. The farther away bike parking is from these areas, the less it will be used. It sounds like the Amtrak location is going to be great, fantastic, and covered and close to the terminal. If the airport location hasn't been finalized, we are encouraging staff to look at a location as close to the departure or arrival areas as possible to ensure a higher rate of success. We're happy to provide examples of other airports that have made this happen. Thanks for your time, and thanks to WTA and the Port of Bellingham for taking steps to make bike travel realistic in our city. Thank you.
Laura, would you do me a favor and would you send us the transcript that you have of that? So that
I sure will.
So that we get all of those points?
I'm happy to. Can somebody give me an email or send it to me or something? Which email do I use?
We'll email you. Apparently we have your email address, and then just respond to that, and that way we have that on file. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Anyone else wishing to speak before the commission? Dan?
Dan Tucker with the Walk and Working Waterfront Coalition. I just wanted to give a shout out to the upcoming vessel turn-in recycling program and say that we really appreciate working with the port and several other partners on this project. For those who are not aware, it's a free vessel turn-in program that is going to happen later in July. And if you're interested, it is a free turn-in event for vessels that are not yet derelict, but in danger of becoming so. They will offer help in getting the vessel to the location if it cannot be moved. They will offer help in getting rid of hazardous materials or dealing with those. But this is in cooperation with a whole bunch of organizations, including DNR, Department of Ecology, the Port, NOAA, Nooksack, Northwest Straits, MRC, Wacom, us. So it's a great program for vessels of 34 feet or less in length. And prior approval is required, so you do need to submit an application, and you can submit that application or find out more information by contacting dvrp@dnr.wa.gov or dialing 360-902-BOAT 2628. So hope that if you are having trouble with a vessel that you want to get rid of, that you can take a look at this program. We'll have information on the coalition's website here pretty soon. You can already find it on other websites for DNR and Northwest Straits. So thank you guys for partnering with all of these organizations to offer this to the community. That's going to really make a difference for some of the slips in the marina, I imagine.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone else wishing to speak before the commission? All right, we'll close public comment and go to the new hire introduction.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Oh, I have to raise this a little bit. Slightly taller. Stephanie Wiley, Community Outreach Manager for the Port. I am introducing our new event staff, Rob Forche. Rob was not able to be here today. It's one of his days off. He works Wednesday through Sunday for events. But Rob is joining us. He has 9 years of experience with the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Program with the U.S. Navy in Central California and has a lot of customer service experience. We're really excited to have him on the team. If you see a very tall Scot walking around the Port of Bellingham, that is Rob, so make sure and say hi.
All right, thank you. All right, on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through J.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yeah, I just wanted to check in on F, maybe with Adrian, for these lockers. I'm glad we were able to get some grant funds. We've been asked several times about this, and we've kind of continually said we'll look into it and see if we can make the finances work. So thank you for working with some of our partners. How are we going to, two questions. One question about the interface that was brought up. Are we able to accommodate that request for a shared interface? And then two, how are we going to track utilization?
Both of those questions I may have to get back to you on. We initially requested the same technology as what the city is using in that same interface, but I need to double check before I give you that answer. And then we would be able to track the usage through that same system.
Okay.
So I will just confirm that and get back to you.
Okay. You know, I ask because, you know, it sounds like we've got locations for these, and we just want to make sure that they're being used if we're dedicating space.
Yeah, and the locations, we have decided at the airport that the best one is very close to the terminal. We had initially been looking out at the cell phone lot, but then we figured somebody coming in at night is not going to want to walk all the way across the parking lot to their bike in the dark. So, so we've located a spot just outside of the more temporary building north of the terminal building. So it's quite close, it's well lit, it's a great spot that's exactly as wide as one of those lockers. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I had another question on J. I'm not sure, was this shore power? It looks like we have received grant funds to cover 100% of this project. One, I just wanted to thank you for the work on this and whoever else has been involved. Thank our team at the legislature for providing funding from this. Am I thanking the right people? This is legislature funding, am I correct?
This is Climate Commitment Act funding that comes through the WSDOT and specifically for their port electrification program, yes.
Okay,
And they've agreed to continue it into the next year as well.
okay, very good. Do we feel secure that PSC will be able to provide the power to support this?
That is a very good question. We have received assurance that they can. However, the way PSC works is you have to have a project that is very well developed before they will tell you whether they have the power. So we are working closely to ensure that that will happen.
Okay, all right. Good to see this on the agenda. I just wanted to call it out because it's a nice milestone, and it's port electrification at our shipping terminal came up today at a cross-border economic development summit I was at, and so it's been just on my mind.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it really has been a team effort here at the staff level, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Adrian.
I did have a conversation with Brian at PSC on that very subject, and what she said is correct. Essentially, we can't commit to that today because it's not defined enough, but as soon as you get it to that point, it's our job to provide it, so we will provide it. I think that was the best way to put that.
Okay.
And
very good.
They're great partners. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Nothing? Mine is just on C, and it's just kind of a little bit of a report to you, and it's on the Colony Wharf lease extension. I did spend a great deal of time over at Colony Wharf, and I think what's consistent with this one that I'd like to bring forward is this is a 10-year renewal. It is almost automatic, and we had a great discussion about what's expected for port leases. Their desire is to have, at some point, longer leases. We talked about what it means to have an investment on the port for your lease term, and essentially to shortchange this, if they sold that lease today, there would be no commitment in the lease for any infrastructure improvements on the site. And I think, as a commission, I think we're shortchanging ourselves by not requiring that. They assured me they're here for the long term. They're the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. They talked me through their vision for the site for the future. We agreed to sit down and talk about their future plans after this extension. But I think what's consistent in this is that we do, the contract that is there, if it's for some reason somebody else were to take it over, I don't think we'd be happy with the way that lease was written. And I just want to be mindful of that as we move forward, that there are some obligations for having a below market rate on a lease provision. But other than that, I'm fully supportive of this, of C going forward, and looking forward to having conversations with them about what the future looks like on that site. And so were they. I mean, it was a great conversation. We were there for easily an hour and a half, and yeah, it was wonderful. So with that, that's all I've got.
Okay.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through J.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe? Yes. Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Presentations, Blaine Harbor. Tiffany or Brian?
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. I think, is this a little back echoey? Yeah, so this is a presentation. Andy Peterson's going to join me here for the last slide, or a couple slides here. This is a presentation that was requested by Commissioner Briscoe at a meeting, a couple of commission meetings ago, as we've been talking about our ongoing, port-wide planning efforts, our work study sessions that we've had. We had the recent one on the airport. We wanted to come back and kind of fill you in on what we're doing up in Blaine. Because if you recall, a little bit over a year ago, we had a similar work study up in Blaine. Staff didn't really do, we were still figuring this out a little bit, so we hadn't done a great job of reporting out what we took away from that and what we're working on. So we want to take this opportunity to do that. The next one, the airport one, we're going to do more of a write-up and more regular report outs on all of these. So this is us kind of figuring this out as we go as well. So this is an update on kind of where we're at on the Blaine items that were discussed last year. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Blaine project team, the port staff. We have an internal staff that have been working on this area for a while. Go through that along with some coordination with the city of Blaine. Just a quick refresher on what tenants are up there, what the properties we have, what's available, kind of how we're managing that from the real estate side of things. Project permitting, we have a number of projects that we're underway with, and kind of just a status update on those, so you'll kind of hear where those projects are at. Also, we have community partners, our economic development teams working with the Working Waterfront Coalition and Drayton Harbor Shellfish on the Maris project. We've been looking at kind of how that's going to go. They'll be actually coming back at a future date with a much more detailed update on their project. We wanted to acknowledge that that's something that we're looking at up in Blaine. And then Andy's going to talk a little bit about the boatyard planning. You know, where we've been without a boatyard up there for a while, and then we're looking to see how we can get that, keep that going or get it going again, and then just highlight kind of next steps. So just as a reminder, we have, this little small area has a lot of work and a lot of different players involved. So we have had for years, but then since we've had that last work study session, we've kicked off an internal team. Sam Shipp, our engineering program manager, leads that. Since it's a kind of a cross-divisional area with a lot of infrastructure needs, a lot of capital investment that's needed, environmental cleanup, the real estate management. So we've got a pretty good-sized team that meets regularly on all the moving parts out here. So we have representatives from our engineering group, our real estate team, of course, our planning group, the Blaine Harbor staff. I mean, they know this area better than anybody, so they're actively involved in, as we talk about anything, even in the real estate and the marine industrial area. Our facilities and maintenance team, because there's been a lot of work on just kind of keeping things together, some temporary repairs, and then our environmental team as well, because of the environmental cleanup work. So that group gets together regularly, talks through things, kind of gets action items and next steps. Out of that has come, the realization that we really need to meet with the City of Blaine team a little bit more. There's been a lot of turnover in their staff, in their planning department and other folks. So we've had multiple meetings now with their team and select group folks from our internal team to really kind of, familiarize us with each other, kind of where they're at on things, and it's been really, really successful. I know the commission has also met a couple times with the city council informally, and then in a couple, kind of one-off settings. And then later this month, Tiffany's going to be up and actually doing a presentation to the Blaine City Council on a variety of things, mostly I think on the Bellingham shipping terminal, but also in opportunity to talk about other things that are going on up there. So a lot of good coordination, a lot of things underway. So this is just a quick snapshot as a reminder. Real estate folks are available if we really wanted to auger into the details of these, but these colored boxes show all the different existing leaseholds that we have up there. There's a variety of different types. There's of different terms. There's some short-term leases, some longer-term leases, and we've been working actively with all of our tenants up there on their needs. One thing you might notice, though, is that this larger area over here, where the former Boatyard is does not currently under lease, and that's something that we're looking at after that tenant departed, of rolling that into a port-operated boatyard following the cleanup work that we'll talk a little bit about. So that area is currently, not under lease and is available for future use as a boatyard for the port. This is a slide that you've seen before. This is one that we've reviewed a few times. This kind of highlights, I think, a number of the infrastructure issues. This is one of the ones we looked at when we had the work study last year. Color coding for the bulkheads is pretty self-explanatory. Green is bulkheads and infrastructure that's in fairly good condition or recently repaired or reinstalled. The yellow is bulkhead sections that are kind of questionable, might need some work, but could have a little bit of work. They don't need as much right now. But then the red areas are the kind of critical failing infrastructure. Those areas that are really either actively failing or we know we need immediate work done on those. So with these next few projects that I'm going to highlight, all of those areas are being addressed, especially, all the red and most of the yellow areas are being addressed soon. So this then is the first of the 3 projects. We have 3 projects that are underway in design and permitting right now. So this is a kind of top-down map view of the Westman Marine Matka cleanup site. So that's back where this boatyard was and where the marine railway is here. This is a top-down view where this is the marine railway, and this green box or line shows where we have planned for new infrastructure and new sheet pile walls that will be installed there. That will allow us to do the dredging out in front, because if we went out and dredged the contaminated sediment out in front of the existing bulkheads, they would fail. They're in pretty rough shape now. Then they wouldn't be able to hold back without the new sheet pile bulkhead installed. And then we'll be able to go back and do the environmental cleanup on the soil, regrade the site, and prep it for operations as a boatyard. We'll also be installing new travel lift piers, because with the removal of the marine railway system, we need to keep that operational, so we're going to switch to a travel lift, and so we'll be replacing that operation with the travel lift piers. So this supports a future boatyard, and we have a JARPA application that's been submitted now, and so we're underway with permitting. The one challenge that we know about is that this is a Matka cleanup site, and not all the Matka cleanup sites were funded in the last legislative session, and this is one of them that was not fully funded. However, we've worked closely with the Department of Ecology, and when these projects become construction ready, they've been open to reprogramming money of existing grants that we could reprogram to sites that are ready to go. So we've already let them know that this is one of our highest priority projects, and we anticipate when they get permits in hand, that we'll be looking at moving grant money over to this site to fully fund it.
Brian, are we maintaining similar weight capacity with what the Marine Railway was able to perform at and what the travel lift will be able to do?
Yeah, we've designed this. This was based on the work study session. We got feedback from the commission on what kind of range to go for, and I think we've got in here a 200-ton travel lift is what we're anticipating being able, and that's about similar to what the Marine Railway could do, and so very similar operations, yeah.
Any expectation that you'll actually have Matka funds in the fund and not swept to the general fund?
Yeah, we do. We have a fair amount of Matka funds in existing grants right now. It will impact our ability to do those projects, though, so it's definitely a shell game in that regard. But I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities to continue to let the legislature know that they want to see these projects getting constructed. So they also, I don't think they were sweeping the fund just to take the money. They really want to see projects get done, and they know there was a lot sitting there that are in permitting or they're not really getting done yet. So, but we'll continue with our legislative groups, kind of beating the drum of the importance of Matka over every budget cycle. So the second project of the 3 is the CK Fish area. This is again a map view. I'll go back to show you. This is over here on this portion of the site. This is another cleanup project. This also includes, you'll see a installation of replacement of a failing bulkhead in order to allow us to do the upland cleanup. So in this scenario, there's a significant amount of petroleum contamination behind the existing bulkhead. It's actually coming out into the harbor at certain tide cycles. So this will put in a new bulkhead, replacing the existing failing one. Excavate behind that on the upland, remove and dispose of that soil, then also do some minor dredging and shoreline restoration. We'll remove the existing dock that's also in pretty rough shape, but then we'll replace that dock in the same footprint once we've got the cleanup done. This one also has a JARPA that's submitted now and ready for review by the permitting agencies. This is also one that's not fully funded. We're gonna have to figure out probably a prioritization. I would anticipate that the Westman Marine site and the Boatyard site would be the first priority. And then if we still have funding that we can move around to this site, this would be kind of the next one in line. So, but we'll come back to the commission, for direction on that when we get closer to those. And then the last one, which is not a MODCA cleanup project, but is also related, and we've permitted all three of these projects together, is the Marine Drive bulkhead. That's the area that connects out to Jorgensen Pier. We have a bunch of potholes, failing bulkhead on the harbor side of that. It's fenced off, you can kind of pedestrians only. And this is a cross-section design that the Port Commission and the City Council of Blaine approved a number of years ago, and it's kind of been sitting there waiting for funding. And finally, last year, we just said, well, Port will just fund the design of that right now, then we'll jointly look to how to actually fund the construction. So we went ahead and got the design going. We have the permits submitted. We're now working with the DNR and City of Blaine on the ownership and management of that area. Is it a right-of-way? Is it could come back to the port? Something like that. And then we'll obviously need to look for funding partnerships and grant opportunities for that project. But we needed to get the design going so we could have a shovel-ready project that we could put forward for grants or other funding.
Go ahead.
So what's in front of me is what we're thinking about submitting?
Well, yeah, that's a good clarification. Thank you, Commissioner. What we submitted was just the bulkhead, the permit. So the actual cross-section of what the road looks like, that's something that still probably needs to be designed. We needed to get the in-water work and the bulkhead repair in for JARPA, for federal review.
This isn't the design, final design
This is
we're
not the
applying
final
for.
design, no.
Okay.
It is the design that was last approved by the commission and the city council years ago. So that's something we'll revisit.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a ballpark for the cost, or is it we don't know the final design parameters, so we can't ballpark yet?
Yeah, I wouldn't get back to you on that. I think by budget cycle, this coming budget year, we'll get some numbers on that. Right now, we're focusing mostly on the bulkhead. Like I said, it depends on then what the final configuration of the actual road or access looks like. That would influence that. For right now, we could probably get a number for what the bulkhead repair is. I don't have that handy, but we can get back to you. So the last one that I've got then is just an acknowledgement of the Maris concept that Tyler and our economic development team has been working with up in Blaine. It's a Marine Economic Research Institute for Sustainability. So they're looking at it's a big coalition of folks that are looking at different ways to bring environmental sustainability, workforce development, educational outreach components, marine economy, looking at that and focusing that as a facility in Blaine that could do a lot of that. They're really early. They're looking at still like their missions kind of statement, their goals and objectives. So there's a lot of discussion about that, and then they'll be coming forward, I think, with a much more concrete concept soon. But we just wanted to highlight that it is an active part of what we're looking at up in Blaine as an opportunity up there. So we did talk to that team, and we've invited them to come to do a much more detailed presentation to the commission as they get further along, probably later this summer or early in the fall. So that's the update of the things that we've been working on. I'm going to hand it over to Andy to talk a bit about how we could potentially move this site forward, the Westman site forward, into a port-operated boatyard. And then the final slide is just kind of some general next steps.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Andy Peterson, Blaine Harbor Master. Thanks for having me down here tonight. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on the boatyard. So just as a reminder, Blaine Harbor has 630 boats moored at our facility. Right across the waterway at Semiahmoo Marina, we have about 250 boats. And over at Point Roberts Marina, we have probably another 750 boats moored in Whatcom County. Currently, neither one of those marinas has an operating boatyard. So the closest operating boatyards are down here 30 miles away by water in Bellingham. So we've received some interest from both the city of Blaine and a number of our moorage customers in northern Whatcom County. They're looking for a boatyard where they can get some basic boat work done. So what we're looking at is following up on the commission direction for getting a basic boatyard operating in Blaine. Nothing fancy. We'd just be able to haul a boat out, pressure wash the bottom of the boat, and allow do-it-yourselfers or marine trades to apply some bottom paint on the bottom of the boat, maybe do some basic rudder propeller work, but more of quick-term, not long-term projects. And this operation would be in effect until we're successful with our permit and MKA funding to take the boatyard apart and do the environmental cleanup and then build back a new facility. To date, actions that we've accomplished, we've restored our 30-ton marine travel lift and gotten our staff trained up on operation of the travel lift. We're continuing to do some hands-on training. We're also reaching out to some of our other port brothers and sisters and trying to gain the benefit of their experience operating boatyards. Specifically, we were looking at Everett and Port Townsend, which both operate a model that the port's considering for the Blaine facility. And then we have a number of next steps that we're currently researching with port staff and on the edge of pulling the trigger. One of those would be developing a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which would be part of our boatyard permit. And then we've got some environmental and operational infrastructural challenges on the site that we need to address to get our wash pad operating again. So we're fully compliant and operating a good, clean operation with our environmental stewardship hat on. And then there's some paperwork that we'll need to accomplish. We need to adopt some best management practices for operation of the site, and then also there's some basic equipment that we need to acquire. Those are all relatively short-term items. We'd be coming back to you for adoption of the rules, regs, and BMPs for the site. So you'll see me again here in the near future. Did you have any questions that I could answer? Or?
Commissioner Shepard?
This all sounds good. So this is a kind of an interim way to activate that space and get people some basic repair opportunities.
Absolutely, yes.
Get a haul out for moderate-sized vessels. Okay. And then we can use some of this expertise as we go forward into our next steps for a more permanent installation.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the training wheels, yeah.
Good. On a separate topic, we've had requests previously about gas, providing gas at the harbor. There is gas sold across the water at Semiahmoo. Right. There's been disagreements over whether they were providing the rates they were supposed to for customers. Have we seen any resolution there, or any alleviation of that bottleneck for people being able to get the fuel they need, or do we continue to get requests for putting something in on our side of the harbor?
I'd say there's still interest from some of our local boaters for having a facility in Blaine Harbor. Some of the fuel, I think there's probably a little bit of a challenge just with the number of boaters purchasing fuel for fuel flowage to support the facility, but that is something that the team is looking into when we look at the boatyard and the future development of that boatyard site, is how that piece could be included into the design and what the operational cost would be.
So currently people are going to the Semiahmoo facility. They don't sell at Point Roberts.
No, they do sell fuel at Point Roberts. They have a fuel dock, small fuel dock, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any update on the breakwater and our birds and their habit of pooping all over the place?
Our feathered friends are still there.
Still pooping?
Yes.
You were talking about putting up a potential platform for a eagle?
Perch.
A perch, maybe.
We're still actually, so during one of our recent vessel deconstruction programs, we were able to save part of an aluminum sailboat mast, which was saved for that purpose.
Okay, so
So
still,
I will touch back with you as soon as work with our facilities team on putting a footing in to get that up. I will touch back with you and let you know how that turned out.
okay. All right, we'll invite a different bird,
Right, Big Bird,
big bird.
yeah,
Okay. Thanks, Andy.
yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No questions, thanks.
My concern would be just the runoff from the wash and the paint. Do we have any estimate on what that cost would be or what that structure would look like underneath?
Right, we're currently, so we do have a concrete wash pad right now, which all vessels would be washed on top of. Some of the infrastructure that's associated with that left with the previous tenant. So we'll need to design and develop some sort of handling filter system to take care of that. But we're working with, our team, port team's working with identifying a consultant right now that could help us make sure that we're in full compliance with Department of Ecology regulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, my only other comment is that we continue to talk about not needing MOTCA funds right away for certain things, and we're scheduling a lot. But if we had that $50 million allocated from MOTCA to some of these projects, we might be able to walk and chew gum at the same time and do more than one project. And I think that's the short-sightedness of the legislature in sweeping MOTCA funds, is that we don't have the ability to do some things quicker. And from an economic development standpoint, having $50 million available to maybe do two projects simultaneously, we might get that property back into useful purposes sooner.
Yep.
And that was what the fund was intended for. So that's just my diatribe on the legislature sweeping $50 million worth of MOTCA funds.
Agreed.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, commissioners.
All right, now, anything else? Civil Air Patrol, Lieutenant Buckley. Oh, it's not Lieutenant Buckley.
Coming up. I am Annika Bjorkman, Senior Property Manager in the Real Estate Department, and I would like to introduce you to Squadron Commander Patrick Buckley.
No worries. Good afternoon, everyone. Might I say that this is both an honor and a privilege to be here with you today and to have this opportunity to share a little bit of what we do out at the Bellingham International Airport and for our community. I've brought a few speakers with me today, a little more than a few, but our presentation won't take very long. Basically, we're just trying to reintroduce ourselves to the community, and we thought we'd start with the port and its commission. Okay. All right. Who are we? Well, we are the Bellingham Composite Squadron of the Civil Air Patrol. Presently, we are located at Williamson Way in the Port Leased building. Thank you very much. We love it. We also rent a hangar out at BLI, and we are 74 cadets strong and 44 adult members. We've had quite a considerable increase since 23, and we are actively recruiting more volunteer members. Let me emphasize that this is an all volunteer operation across our nation, and it's the same way here in Bellingham. Civil Air Patrol 101, we're a congressionally mandated civilian auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. We are a nonprofit organization. We support America's communities with emergency response, diverse aviation and ground services, and youth development and promotion of air, space, and cyber power. Our three missions are emergency services, aerospace education, and cadet programs. And now I'd like to introduce someone that some of you already know, Major Aaron Clausen. He is still ancillary to our squadron. He is a member of our squadron, but he also has moved up in the world. Some of you know him as our former Squadron Commander. He's moved up to wing for the state, and he is our Assistant Director of Communications. And he'll talk with you about emergency services today.
So I am Major Aaron Clausen. I am in the flight suit because I am actually a mission pilot. I'm an incident commander. I used to be the Director of Emergency Services for the Washington Wing, which is the state organization. I have since handed that off to somebody else. So nationally, we're involved with 90% of the search and rescue missions that go on. Washington is a little different. We have done, looking at the slide here, during the pandemic, we got activated by the EOC and we delivered food for the food bank. We also transported blood for Port Angeles when they had an emergency and all the smoke was in the Puget Sound. We were the only crazy people who would fly. We've also done crowd control, but don't read too much into that. We are legally prohibited from doing law enforcement. All we can do is shake our finger and say, don't do that. If not, I'll shake my finger at you again. When the vaccine came out. So we got activated to stand and direct people to where they can get their Fauci ouchie, if you've heard that expression. We're a phone call away. So when we get activated at the national level, we generally are funded by the national organization. We show up when local governments, from the port to the EOC to the sheriff to whoever, calls the 1-800 number and says, hey, we need help. We have tactical resources, we have drones, we have the aircraft. We also provide command and control if that's what's needed. I'm a FEMA, I've gone through all the FEMA training that the civilians can get access to. CAP says I'm IC3 capable, or we can just stand there and point people toward the bathrooms if that's the emergency. Before I hand it off, are there any questions?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Like I said, there are 3 arms to our organization. Actually, it looks like it jumped to cadet programs, so I'll let cadet programs take over. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ianthe Andrus. I am former Australian military, so you can hear the accent. I'm just going to say that up front. I'm the Deputy Commander for the cadet program here in Bellingham. That means I'm the adult who is in charge of the cadet run program. So we currently have 74 cadets, which is fantastic. So far this year, we've got 21 new cadets. Our 4 missions in the cadet program are similar to Civil Air Patrol's overall missions. So it's leadership, aerospace education, fitness, and character development. So for example, in aerospace, we have had 3 cadets who've been selected to get scholarships to receive, to go for their private pilot's license and do that training here in Bellingham. We offer a free pilot ground school at the squadron every week, which is run by Major Clausen. We also are currently partnering with NASA on an aviation weather research mission. So we've been doing that out at Zwanich Point, and we've got another one coming up in 2 weeks, and that's a national mission. We've also, our cadets regularly participate and are selected to lead local events. Just 2 weekends ago, Memorial Day, the middle photo there is our cadets in the Memorial Day parade. They also did the colour guard out at Green Acres as well. They get asked to do colour guards for the different high schools, not just here in Bellingham, but up in Ferndale as well, and they're quite active. They also participate at the state level, and 10 of our cadets this year have been selected for the highly competitive national level activities. So some examples of that, we have one cadet who's going to an Air Force Flight Academy. We have an international exchange student, Air Cadet exchange student going to Australia, surprise. We have Honour Guard Academy staff and cadets. We have one of our cadets here as well who's going to the Cadet Officer School in July in Alabama. We wish him all the best. and Space Operations Academy down in Florida, and Ground Search and Rescue Academy just down in JBLM. So our cadets are going to give us just a quick brief about why they're in Civil Air Patrol, what they've achieved. So I'll just hand over to them.
Good evening. I'm Cadet First Lieutenant Nathan Stout. Real quick, why I joined Civil Air Patrol was initially to learn how to fly, but I like to say that I stayed in for the leadership opportunities. Civil Air Patrol really hones in on our 3 missions, which you'll hear about aerospace education hopefully soon. I've gotten opportunities to go to Ground Search and Rescue Academy and to do local emergency services training events. While I haven't been called out on any official missions, I have had to use those skills in real life before. For our aerospace education, I've gotten opportunities to do cadet O-rides here, and I even did part of my ground school here at the squadron as well. Last summer, I went to a National Cadet Special Activity just over in Ephrata, Washington, where I ended up flying a powered aircraft, and I ended up soloing last summer. As for our 3rd mission, cadet programs, I'm big into this one. I often staff and command and instruct, and I'm a teacher at our Washington All Missions Academy, which is held monthly. And I am the lucky cadet who gets to go to Cadet Officer School this summer. So I'm given a lot of amazing opportunities, and all of them are equally as promoted and encouraged by all of us. Thank you.
Cadet Nathan, where do you plan to attend college?
I'm really hoping for Central Washington University's professional pilot program. I'm working on the admissions process right now. I'm a junior in high school, though, so thank you, sir.
Hello, I am Cadet Second Lieutenant Carolina Cook. I initially joined Civil Air Patrol, like most young cadets, wanting to fly in the sky. However, after a while, I realized that I was looking more into the leadership aspects. So through the Civil Air Patrol program, I have exponentially expanded my leadership capabilities, organization skills, and communication skills. So for example, we have a encampment, which is like a week where we train our new cadets down in Oregon. And at the encampment, there was 14 flights of 16 cadets with, I believe, 6 staff members. So it was a lot of people. And I was selected as the honor flight sergeant. So out of those 14 people, I was selected for my hard work and dedication to leading those 16 cadets for 7 days, which start at 5:30 and end about 10. So those were some long days. I have also gotten the opportunity to expand my organization skills and my communication skills, as I've gotten offered to teach multiple classes to our cadets. So through preparing my presentation and through communicating with other instructors, I have learned new things that I definitely would not have done before this. Thank you.
Lieutenant Cook, where do you intend to go to college?
That's a fantastic question, sure, sir. I am looking at the Air Force or Marines right now as enlisting, sir.
Enlisting? You know you're going to get it, so just lead off with it.
I am Cadet Major Atticus Andrus, and I am the Cadet Squadron Commander of Bellingham Composite Squadron. I joined Civil Air Patrol with the idea that I wanted to follow an emergency services path, so I wanted to go and learn as much as I could about emergency services in Civil Air Patrol, which led me to attend Washington State's Ground Search and Rescue Academy down at Joint Base Lewis McChord. I attended that. I really liked it. I went back as an advanced student for a 2nd year. After that, I had that knowledge, so I brought it back to my squadron, and I convinced other cadets to go. And now we have a pretty substantial group of cadets that have attended this academy that are interested in emergency services. This then led me down the path of more of a leadership path. As the Cadet Commander, I started 4 years ago as an airman, just in a flight. I didn't have any leadership, but I saw that I wanted to command a flight, then I wanted to command the squadron. So I followed that pathway to help me pursue my passion of leadership and emergency services. I've also been selected to be the cadet going to the International Air Cadet Exchange in Australia, which was a unique honor that I am proud to have been selected for. It's one of the most competitive activities that Civil Air Patrol offers, so it is. I'm thankful that I was selected. I also attended Space Operations Academy in Florida, and I hope to follow into maybe an aerospace career, hopefully later on in life. So that was unique to see behind the scenes of NASA, but not just NASA, but also the Space Force and how they operate out of Kennedy Space Center.
You know the question.
Yeah. I do not know yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
They're a great group of cadets, aren't they? We are really proud of them. So I'd like to touch on why CAP matters, why Civil Air Patrol matters to the Port of Bellingham. We are always seeking expanded partnerships or community partnerships and visibility in your own mission and your partners' missions. We support the community. We are highly qualified pilots and emergency services personnel. I wanted to touch on emergency services again. We speak the language that all of our emergency responders speak. We work closely with Whatcom County Sheriff and their Department of Emergency Management. We work with FEMA and also the state EOC. So we talk the same language, and I'd like to bring up again, we are a phone call away. And we want the port to know that. You make one phone call, it activates us, and we can do a variety of things for you. And would love to talk to you about that at another time. Our role is to build leaders, aviators, and first responders, and we are a low-cost youth program. So thank you for your time today, and if there's any questions in the room, we'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I have none, but thank you guys for your service, and good luck on your future.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Shepard?
I don't think I have any questions, but it's really nice to put some kind of faces to the organization. We've hear about the organization. We know they're a tenant, and it's really impactful for us to connect and see really the impact this is having on young people's lives, and how this is really a great part of our work we do here to have a strong, resilient community, but also create employment pathways going into the future. So definitely a helpful presentation for me to see the value of this organization. Thank you.
Mine is a comment real quick. It's the largest class I've seen, having been out there a few times. So is that true? You haven't been at this level for quite some time.
Yes, we are growing.
And can you attribute the 21 recruits this year to anything in particular? Oh, you've got a recruiter. Is she on commission?
Actually, our cadet recruiter, Cadet Cook, has been very active in the schools. We have school outreach programs, both within the students for peer-to-peer recruiting, and we have a aerospace education program where we reach out to educators and talk with people that way. So
Yeah, it's an incredible, thank you, Lieutenant. It's an incredible group of young people, and the leadership skills are second to none. So thank you for the presentation. All right, the state legislature update. You could probably steer away from MOTCA funding there, Michael, when you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Hogan, Public Affairs Administrator, and I believe on Zoom we have Katie Whittier and Brian Enslow. They were our, Kate, are they on Zoom possibly?
Yeah, we are here.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, so this was our team down in Olympia during the session. They did a terrific job. Spoke with them weekly, multiple times per week, and I'm very happy with the work that they did for us. It was a switch. We switched to CFM after many years with a different consultant, and one of the questions I know that you had was, are we continue to work closely with the city and county? And yes, in fact, I'm meeting with them on Friday. Had good work with them during the session, and we'll continue to work with them. And as you know, even though the legislative session ended, the work really begins right now. It never ends. And just quickly, during the session, we were dominated by a $16 billion budget gap. So really playing defense and trying to protect MOTCA, it's always one of our top priorities. And when there's a $16 billion budget gap. We have great projects, great examples in Bellingham Bay and Blaine Harbor, but throughout the state, a lot of those communities don't have cleanup projects like we do. We have a lot of new legislators coming in, so it's always a challenge to raise MOTCA up to the level that it needs to be and help people recognize how important it is economically, environmentally, and for communities and the potential. And I think one of the opportunities, even though it was a challenging year, there was money transferred out of MOTCA. We've been able to work with ecology and allow some of the money that we've had for MOTCA grants to move it to other sites. So for example, Blaine Harbor, and address some of our other priorities. So we'll continue to do that work. And then lastly, before Katie and Brian take it over, I just wanted to mention our district energy system on the waterfront. We had the ribbon cutting last week, and as one success up at Western got $41 million this session from Climate Commitment Act dollars to start the first phase of district energy system. No other university in the state got that kind of money, so that's a lot of dollars coming into Whatcom County to support that effort. And I think, and that's just the first phase, so there'll be additional. We're doing a study right now looking at how we can connect the waterfront district energy system up to Western. So a really good opportunity for clean energy funding in our community in the coming decade, really. And the other thing at the ribbon cutting I heard was Puget Sound Energy. We're using the waste heat from the cogen. They're going to be looking at all their facilities across the state and beyond at opportunities to harvest that heat to support these type of systems, because a really innovative, sustainable energy solution. So just thought I'd quickly mention that, and I'll turn it over to Katie and Brian to give you the nuts and bolts of what went on in Olympia.
All right, we will take it over from here. I will introduce myself first, and then I will let Brian introduce himself, and then we'll get rolling. I'm Katie Whittier. I am your lead advocate in Olympia. I come from CFM, which is a advocacy firm based out of Portland, and I represent Olympia for CFM, but you also have federal representation through CFM. David Hodges is your federal representative, and there's some good synergies that happen when you get when you have both lobbyists under one roof for your state and your federal advocacy. We can find ways to work together. We can find ways to leverage certain funding or other ideas off of each other, and so it's a pretty good foundation to start from. In addition, I'm still pretty new in Olympia, and so we brought on Brian Enslow to provide strategic guidance. He's experienced and knows his way around, and it's been a great partnership, so I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you. Just briefly, I've been living and working in Olympia for over 25 years, about 10 of those as a budget writer for both the executive and legislative branch. And then for the last 15 years or so, I've been a lobbyist specializing in local government. And perhaps most germane to this group, I am a Western grad. I am a participant of the Ski to Sea, Tour to Whatcom, and the Bellingham Bay Marathon. So, and then Katie, is there, or someone maybe in the room, I'm speaking from a slide deck, but is there a slide deck that is in front of, and do I need to do like prompts? All right, next slide. One more slide, please. Thank you very much, appreciate that. So there were a lot of new players, and obviously, notably, we had a new executive for the first time in 12 years. And, a large percentage of the legislature is also new and hadn't really experienced this level of financial challenge. Our little note on the deck says, 40% of the legislature, but that was before the new executive came in and started, picking off legislators to run agencies. So that even changed that dynamic further. I think I can count kind of on my hands the legislators that were around in 2009. So not many folks that have experienced kind of tough fiscal constraints. In fact, the majority of them came in when all of the ARPA money and things like that was coming in. So that was an interesting dynamic. It created a lot of tension. I think a lot of times people focus about the tension between the parties, but quite frankly, this was kind of more of an internal tension between the majorities in the Democratic majorities in the House and the Senate, and then a governor who perhaps not only was less politically aligned with those majorities than the previous administration, he was also just like more interested in getting involved in being a governor from like a executive perspective. So that was definitely very evident as we were kind of moving through the legislative process, that there was a lot of folks that were like, hey, what's going on here and why are we getting so much pushback? As mentioned prior, there was fairly significant budget tension that was created primarily by inflation and the increased cost in providing government services. That 16 billion number is a 4-year number. The state is required to provide a 4-year kind of like budget outlook and a balanced budget over a 4-year term, but they actually only produce a document that's a 2-year budget. So just wanted to highlight that. As Mr. Hogan mentioned, we were playing a lot of defense, and I think it would perhaps be, I think it'd be naive to not think anyone, whether it's local government, whether it's ports, whether it's education, whether it's behavioral health, whatever sector you represent or involved in, that you weren't going to experience some pain, and some pain was experienced kind of and spread throughout. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. So, with respect to the operating budget, it was a little bit of a détente. There's some things where, for instance, earlier in today's meeting, the shore power was mentioned. Like we were able to get like the reappropriation of the existing grants, but not necessarily new money. We were lucky to get curb maintained. We were able to have the industrial symbiosis program, but then there's other places where I know Katie will go into that we weren't so successful. There is a significant revenue package to support the spending level that was ultimately approved. And this is where a lot of that tension between the executive and the legislature materialized. If you recall, the first legislative budgets had revenue packages that were, $15 to $17 billion over the 4 years. And the governor basically said, I'm not going to support that. You got to come back and do better, if you will. And those initial packages could be framed as like perhaps progressive. If you recall, there was an intangibles tax, there was a payroll tax on like high wage earners and things like that. And then there was a very targeted and large B&O tax rate for businesses that had higher gross income, but not necessarily profits. So for instance, and I'll use like Hagen or Albertsons that maybe does a lot of transactions but has really low margins was particularly impacted by having a huge jump in the B&O. And so where we landed was a more peanut buttering effect, where you see a lot of B&O rates going from like 0.48 to around 0.5, excuse me, I got to include that decimal. There is like some areas where these packages is a little bit, could be labeled a little bit progressive if you look at a 0.5 additional B&O surcharge on gross income over 250 million on the increment. And then when you look into like the capital gains in the estates, those rates are increased, and they're increased by a larger function as you kind of go up in the wealth chain. The transportation budget is a lot of the like FMCIB and some of those other programs generally maintained. It does rely on a 6% gas tax. There is so there was no, there was a lot of conversation about whether there was going to be a road usage charge. Ultimately, that didn't materialize. There's no new projects, but many of the most important projects in the region were maintained. I know Katie is going to go more into kind of some of the capital budget takeaways specifically around MOTCA. I think one of the things I wanted to highlight was the Public Works Assistance account. That was just evidence that the state was was cash poor, but debt capacity rich. And so, the various iterations of the legislature have kind of looked at the Public Works Assistance account as very fungible and you know, it can kind of be used for various things. What happened here is a lot of the revenues that go into the program were diverted to then pay for their obligations around culverts. They funded the projects list, but they did something, this isn't an actual accurate or technical term, but my brain, it makes sense. They did something I call reverse arbitrage, where they're using general obligation bonds to kind of backfill the loans that they were putting out. So you're taking something that, you know, you're using an interest rate around 4 or 5% and pushing it now out at 1%, which doesn't seem sustainable. So fortunately, this is only a 2-year budget, and that's only a 2-year policy, and hopefully we go back to normal 2 years from now. That's going to conclude my remarks. I think I'm going to kick it back to Katie. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And while we're still on the topic of taxes, revenue sources, we had one pretty big win. The first iteration of revenue package that came out had some repeals of tax preferences, so tax exemptions that the legislature wasn't sure they were helping anymore. 2 of those impacted ports and trade, the trade industry, and agricultural, especially in Washington. One was effectively a new public utility tax by instituting what could be written off of almost 2% on the shipment of goods within the state, intrastate goods. The other was a 5-fold increase in the B&O taxes for stevedoring services. Basically, there was a lot of education that needed to happen on why these tax preferences were working, even if they didn't seem to meet the intent of why they initially were rolled out. And big credit goes to the Northwest Seaport Alliance for leading this charge. They pulled together a pretty broad coalition of folks to help educate legislators on the impacts of these tax preferences. And in the end, they were preserved, so they did not get repealed. And new language was added with those tax preferences to clarify their intent so that hopefully they don't end up on the chopping block in the future. So we can go to that next slide now and talk about MOTCA, which is a big topic here, and the remedial action grants, which are RAG. I'm preaching to the choir. You all know more than I do about MOTCA, but I can tell you I got smart real fast on this topic because it became evident that you, the Port of Bellingham, needs to be a leading voice and are a leading voice on MOTCA in the state. So when Ecology put together their request in the fall, they knew they were operating with some austerity. We needed to cut back some of their programming. And they came to the table with a list of 23 projects. This was out of 38 projects under RAG that had previously been funded. So 23 out of 38 already represents some, a pretty close shave, we'll call it. When Governor Inslee put out his proposal at the end of December, he narrowed it further to just the top 11 projects on the remedial action grant list. So included in the governor's list was the Whatcom Waterway project, the Cornwall Avenue landfill. That's great news for you. But just missing that cut of 11 are the projects in bold on the slide. The INJ Waterway, R.G. Haley site, which is the city site, but deeply connected to the work that you're doing, Georgia Pacific West, and then projects that made neither list, Westman Marine, CK Fish, Blaine Marina, Wellcraft Steel. So we were watching closely to see if there was any room for movement at all. And it became clear that we needed to be a leading voice in pulling together a coalition of folks, in large part because Port of Bellingham knows how to use these funds in really good ways and has been doing it a lot longer than a lot of the places around the state. So naturally, it needed to be Port of Bellingham-led coalition building to get this conversation going. We worked that coalition together. It was WPPA, obviously. We had the Association of Counties involved, many individual cities. AWC didn't officially join in with the coalition efforts, but they did support MOTCA in their overall talking points to legislators. But many individual cities signed on regardless. We had environmental groups, the petroleum industry towards the end, they joined on, and obviously ports. Just about every port in the state wanted to have their voice in on this issue. Even ports that had already finished their MOTCA projects, and they were particularly powerful in being able to tell that success story. So we organized a coalition letter first, and then towards the end we did a second larger coalition letter. The first coalition letter that we organized mirrored a Dear Colleagues effort that Representative Timmons ran in the House. So his effort was to get legislators to sign on to a similar letter that we had already submitted, and this letter went to the budget writers. the capital budget in particular to preserve MACA and ideally extend that list beyond the top 11. There was the op-ed you probably saw in the Bellingham Herald right at the end of session as these final decisions were coming together. There were obviously a lot of meetings, a lot of coordination with the city of Bellingham on this one. Worked with that lobbyist closely to try to get meetings, to keep the conversation going, to add meat to the bones of the argument as much as possible. In the end, we avoided deeper cuts. We did not expand that list beyond the top 11. That is what stuck. But thankfully, as Mike mentioned in the opening, Ecology sounds like they're working really hard to be able to find the flexibility to move funds around so that we can make sure that your projects keep going. There were deeper cuts in mind. So the budget that came out looked like they were wanting to sweep $100 million out of MACA into the general fund. In the end, that number came down to 70. So we'll count that as a win. That's real money we're talking about. And the RAG funding did increase slightly, but not enough to include more projects on that list. So next slide, please. And where does that leave us with MACA? So on the whole, Port of Bellingham is looking a lot better than a lot of the state. 2 of the top 11 projects are yours. That represents almost 50% of the funding that was allotted to these top 11 projects. Obviously, we're working with Ecology to move some of that money around and make it work. Also, it's worth, and I think probably you all are doing this within your staff work, but working with Ecology to figure out if there are ways to bring costs down in terms of what can Ecology do, to make the administration side of these projects a little bit more straightforward. And that's a conversation that legislators are interested in having, WPPA is interested in having, and so one of our next steps is to see if we can be helpful with those conversations. But as Mike mentioned in the start too, there's just been a lot of turnover. And so a lot of these new legislators, they didn't go through the 2019 talks of sweep. So they didn't get that education and outreach about MACA and why it's important and how it works and why these projects are complex and take so long. Getting that story going again is going to be really important in the interim and going into next session, especially. We don't expect next session to necessarily make things easier. So the good news is there's a kind of informal caucus, the House Maritime Caucus, and there's at least one legislator who's already expressed interest in coming to see you. She's Olympia-based, so getting legislators beyond your loyal 40th and 42nd folks, getting other legislators interested in seeing what you're doing because you're kind of a model for the state. So you're the ones who are in the best position to tell the educational story that needs to be told. And MACA wasn't the only thing we worked on. Next slide. So beyond MACA, there were several policy bills and funding wins that are worth mentioning. 1415 was a House bill that provides UTC oversight for your district energy network. Mike already mentioned the Western Washington University funding. This is a direct result of having that district energy network ready to go there on your waterfront. So already seeing dividends from that. House Bill 1515, we also called that Sip and Stroll. It is kind of a fun one related to the World Cup fan zones next year, and it could prove to be a pilot project for does it work to host events that don't require beer gardens, allowing people to take a drink from one location to another seamlessly. If it goes well, there is some interest in making the rule apply to bigger events more permanently, but most legislators just really want to see how it goes with the World Cup before making a commitment like that. Industrial symbiosis saw some investment with a $5 million grant program that could come in handy in that transitional area between the waterfront and your terminal. We'll see how that plays out. Derelict vessel program did see some investment, which is good news. Broadband saw some investment, $114 million of state funds. You'll also know there's a federal effort there too. It looks like $1.2 billion in investment in broadband federally. And as Brian mentioned, CURB grants, they were maintained at $75 million. There's also a new rural port program in CURB funded at $5 million, which should be helpful. The Whatcom Ag Research Center saw an investment of just over $750,000. And ADO funding, you're the ADO for your region. It was halved, but it was preserved. And there were some very good, robust conversations about the importance of ADOs across the state. All right, I'll kick it back to Brian for how we get ready for 2026.
I mean, honestly, it's going to be more defense. I think there's, there's so much uncertainty, particularly at the federal level of what resources are going to be continue to be made available or not. And there's puts and takes there, as we mentioned on the last slide. I don't think anyone was really expecting an additional 1.2 billion in broadband, but it was provided. But I think specifically around some of the larger things that are not necessarily port related, but whether it's Medicaid or education, things like that, I think the uncertainty definitely has people a little bit on edge. You'll hear some rumors about maybe having to have a special session based on the state not having an overly robust reserve. So, and if there is, probably like aligned with like October. Just a reminder, all the bills that we didn't necessarily love or that we loved on that died will be back, because that's just how it works. So everything introduced in the first year of biennium kind of comes back and is retained in its present force. So we got it the first time, but more work to be done next year. And then, things came together pretty quickly at the end, and sometimes there's mistakes, sometimes there's technical corrections needed, and a lot of times there's unintended consequences. So it's possible we'll have to see some either reworking or rethinking of some of the stuff that was adopted this year that maybe isn't playing out exactly the way they thought it would. So that's just kind of the very early look into next year, and mostly it's just a continued theme of just uncertainty and a lot of anxiety. A lot of people that feel like things aren't in their control, and they're used to feeling like they are in their control.
Thank you. And that concludes our presentation. So we can drop the slide deck and answer some questions if you'd like.
Mike, did you have a final statement?
Oh, I just wanted to, thank Brian and Katie, and if the commission had any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Briscoe? Commissioner Shepard?
Thank you for the presentation. It's nice to meet you guys. Thanks for all your work in Olympia. It's definitely it was a tough budget cycle, and it's not going to turn around anytime soon. So I appreciate all the work on defense. I think we do have some good wins, and I like your suggestion about trying to do some of that targeted outreach with some of our other legislative colleagues outside of our two core districts here. MOTCA's, it can be technical and in the weeds and wonky for people, and it becomes very crystal clear about its impact when we get to tour them on successful project sites. And we have a number of them here, and we really are statewide leaders on working with Department of Ecology and our other partners to clean up these sites and reposition them for community use, for economic development purposes, for business expansion, and for improving our economy. And so I will look for opportunities to work with our team to continue to try and bring some of our legislative colleagues up here just so they can see this in person and get some shoes on the ground and some of our active and completed cleanups. So I'll look for you to help us with that, Mike.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, we have the groundbreaking for the R.G. Haley Cornwall Avenue landfill cleanup should happen in the next couple months for Salish Landing Park. And we're talking about getting Casey Sixkiller, who's the new head of Department of Ecology, up, and a good opportunity to showcase, just a transformational impact that the MOTCA and the Remedial Action Grant Program can have for communities.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
I'm just going to, Commissioner Ball, just going to play off of one thing you said. It's a conundrum to me that MOTCA funds aren't given until the permits are issued, and yet the biggest obstacle we have is getting the permits through. So we don't get to spend the money, but yet we've made the process so difficult to get the permits that we build up a fund that we can't spend. It's just a conundrum, and it just shows how backwards that process is. Because if we had the money, we could certainly be cleaning them up. It's just the permits that are holding us up at the moment. That's one editorial. Second one is, it's amazing how much pain can be felt by everybody, and we increase the budget by so much. And the last one is, we tax the most vulnerable among us. We tax the gases, which are going to hit everyday pockets. And we also tax the B&O, which is going to hit business the most. So in looking for revenue, this legislature seemed to go after the people that we would not want to tax if we had a choice. So those are just my editorial comments. All right. Thank you very much. You guys have done a great job. Thanks for advocating for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioners.
All right. We're going to go to the end of the meeting, public comment. Anybody else care to speak before the commission with any? There is no sign-up sheet for the last one. Just first come, first serve.
Let's take a 5-minute for Bobby to use the bathroom.
Okay. Actually, we will take a 5-minute break. The old men in the group will go to the.
Some of the not as old men too.
We are going to go to public comment. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak? Craig?
Craig Cooper, 319 South Forest, here in Bellingham. Hey, at the end of June, there's a really fun thing happening out of Port Townsend, hosted by the Northwest Maritime Center. It's a race that's human or wind-powered, and it starts in Port Townsend. It goes to Olympia. From there, it comes to Bellingham Bay, goes around the outfall buoy, and then goes up around to Point Roberts, and then back to Port Townsend. It's called the Washington 360 race. It's kind of the little brother to the Race to Alaska, which is a race from Port Townsend up to Ketchikan, Alaska, 750 miles, no engines. Why am I talking about it today? There's actually 6 teams from Bellingham doing it this year, and the port has generously given us some space Saturday, June 14th from 5 to 8 p.m. right below San Juan Sailing on the guest dock there. The 6 boats that are participating in the race this year will be in the water, so we're going to have kind of a in the water open house send-off little party. So please come down if you're interested in that race or the boats or the teams. Saturday, June 14th at 5 to 8.
Wow. How long does that typically take?
It depends. Boats, well, the Bellingham, there's 99 teams doing it. There's anything from a kayak to fully crewed carbon racing trimarans that race through the night. I could say that I'm part of a team. My oldest kid and I are doing it, so double-handed on our boat. I think it'll take 7 to 10 days or something. And but the fast teams, I'm guessing probably 4 days, 3.5, 4 days, something like that. So yeah, it's 360 miles, and it's just a cool thing that they do. They were doing Race to Alaska every single year, and then COVID hit, and the kind of closed the borders, so they had to come up with a race that stayed in the U.S., and it was really popular during COVID. So now they're doing this every other year, Race to Alaska, and now the Washington 360. So. Yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else wishing to speak to the commission? Anybody online? No one? Anybody else in the audience? Okay, we will move to other business. Commissioner Briscoe?
Oh, I've got a couple things on my mind. Today that warehouse 9 is not going to come down this summer as anticipated because of a shortfall in the budget. And I think we kind of need to try and figure out how to bring that down this summer. It's going to set us back on our projects in Fairhaven there at the Aerowax area and the shipyard. So I wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. I don't know if it was on your radar or not that wasn't going to happen. No, it wasn't. But I think we need to see if we can't try and work with staff and see if we can't try and shift some funds or find something somewhere. I know, but what can I say? That is really an area that needs to be cleared up because we got other things we want to do there, and if we set it back a year, sets everything back a year. So, and I spoke with Elliot and Terry today, and this came up in the meeting, we were discussing something else. Oh, we were discussing something else, but you know, that area is going to be needed. We're talking about putting a freezer in there, you know, and in the short term, you can put freezer bands on that particular piece of ground and get the jet, you know, get the rocket off the ground. But if we leave that rotten building sitting there, we're just pushing things back, and I think we just need to figure out how to get that done. The other thing kind of came to me today in some conversations with staff, and I'd like to get a report on our rail spur we're putting in, because it's going to go over the top of the alkali plant, and there's still mercury there, and I don't think we're permitted to do anything yet. Maybe Brian can speak to that a little bit. We need to figure out how that needs to go on the front burner and get it done, because that's going to hold up our terminal, and we desperately need the income from our terminal. I know everybody will agree with me on that, and I know how these things go, and if that fuel cylinder isn't getting filled to get the rocket off the ground, we're in trouble.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioners. That's a good question. No, we are very well aware of that. We're tracking that really closely. So we do have a cleanup action plan that's been approved by the Department of Ecology for that area of the GP site. We had not planned on doing it in that sequence, but now that that was going to be one of the later projects that we did, just because of the way that that would have worked a little bit better. But now that this rail project has come along, we're working, our environmental team and the engineering team are working really closely along with the terminals team to make sure that the cleanup are either out ahead or done in conjunction with the rail project. So actually, I think last week, the request for professional services for the design consultant for the rail team, that was issued. So we haven't selected a design firm yet, but that's going to be imminent. And that first order of business is to work really closely with our cleanup team to make sure that how those will get designed and built either in sequence or together. So well aware of it. The biggest challenging probably is going to be the funding. So that's another example where we have some funding for the GP West site that the chlor-alkali site is part of. Probably not fully funded to do, from a Matka side of things, to do the full cleanup. But if we're construction ready, I think that, like we said, the ecology is going to be flexible to make sure that we can move some funding around from other projects to fund the construction. That's going to be the highest priority. So good point, but we're definitely tracking that issue closely.
Okay, so we're looking, it looks at this point like we wouldn't be held up on that spur. We can get things to come together.
Right, yes, correct. And the permitting for these upland cleanup sites are much different than the in-water cleanup sites. So this is an upland site with no marine infrastructure and like that. So the permitting site process for that's a lot more streamlined too.
Right. Thank you, Brian. We hadn't heard much on that, and we need some information.
Yeah, we'll probably provide an update as soon as we get the design team on board, and then we'll get a little bit more information from them and present some to the commission on.
Can you give us a straw man instead of an update here? Can you give us, so we have a little idea what the time frame is on that?
For the consultant selection, I believe, Sam, do you know when that?
I mean,
Yeah, so in the end of June, we'll have the consultant on board, and then, within a like I said, first order of business is really to get them engaged with the team and to give us some feedback on like what types of, we got some concepts, but we want their expertise to help us inform like the location, because if we could avoid that area and not have to do that at all, that might be the first preference, or minimize it. So there's lots of options that we'll be looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Brian, let me just follow up. If we do a cleanup, is it going to be a partial cleanup? Because the chlor-alkali site it's a larger site than just the area where the rail spur is going to go.
Yeah, it would probably be a partial cleanup of the chlor-alkali site. It wouldn't be an interim action, because that's one where we haven't yet had a full cleanup decision by ecology. So when you want something that's prior to them making a final decision, they made a final decision on the cleanup and and now we just need to design them and do them. We might just be doing a slice of it. Yeah. So we would do a portion and then move to another portion. It may be more of like a phased approach, but it would be the final cleanup.
Okay.
Thanks on that, Brian. Appreciate it. Yep. I have nothing else.
Okay, Commissioner Shepard.
Yeah, a couple things. First, I wanted to just extend a welcome to everybody who is here for the Pacific Northwest Economic Development Meeting. It happened today and it's happening tomorrow. I had the privilege to be on a panel today to talk about our rail spur reconnection and some of the work that's happening at our shipping terminal. So great to have a whole bunch of people who are really excited about rail, are really excited about ports, and really excited about cargo and what that means for our communities throughout Washington State and the larger region here. I wanted to, Mike already brought up acknowledging all the staff work that went into the district energy opening. It's a really significant accomplishment, and I just want to also thank past commissioners and staff who have really been involved in this for quite some time and had to make, I think, some of the hardest decisions about putting money into a project that you can't really see or doesn't even fully wasn't even materialized yet. And so for those past people who sat in my seat and those staff members who have really seen this through, we had to make decisions about putting pipes under roads that enabled this project to go forward. And that project wouldn't have happened if those decisions weren't made in the past. And they have really created a opportunity to have a great landmark project that serves as an example for Puget Sound Energy and other communities to use as an example elsewhere. So just really, I'm thrilled to see that moving forward and appreciate all the work that has gone into getting us there.
That's one of the first decisions we had to make as a port, is how many pipes to lay down. I remember that like it was yesterday, and the pressure to keep it cheap, but also, and to be visionary enough to put in enough pipes. That was, yeah, you took me back.
Yeah, yeah. So good work. Next is, I want to also thank staff who participated in Ski to Sea, and port facilities are really prominently featured at Ski to Sea, and I've had just a number of people come up and just share their appreciation for how well everything was run this year, how it just, the port facility shined, and that our staff really puts in a ton of hard work to make that possible. So it's a great event, community loves it, and we play a big role in making it happen. So thank you. My last one is a little bit more challenging. I'm going to make a motion for us to have conversation. And the motion, I'm going to make a motion for termination of employment of the executive director position. So I will see if there is a second.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. With a second, that allows us for conversation as a commission. Then we can take a vote if we choose. And if we do take a vote, then we will take additional actions after.
And I will just say, anyone wishing to leave the room now would be the time. If you don't want to stick around for this, that's fine. Yeah, and the reason for my second is not to be disparaging towards the executive director. There is no more complicated port on the planet than the Port of Bellingham. There is no more complex business operation than the Port of Bellingham. We have more operations. You look at the Port of Tacoma, it's a basic operation, but we have got a very diverse operation, and we have been through some very tough times, including COVID, with the executive director, and he did an amazing job. We have never had a budget that has not met target. We have never had an issue with that. And his integrity is beyond reproach. In my mind, we have a new day. It's 2025. We have an opportunity for some new opportunities with a lot of the waterfront properties coming back. We have a need right now, I think, for the port to have a new vision and a different direction. So from my standpoint, this is not a reflection on the past. It is more a reflection on what we want to see moving forward, because it is a new day, and I do believe that.
Okay. And, you know, for me, I think change is not an if. It's an inevitable. Every organization operates in processes of change. Ours does as well. And the commission, for me, I really want to recognize that we have benefited from years of leadership and service by our executive director. Rob's just done a fantastic job for many years. We also see opportunities for being in the driver's seat for the next chapters that are awaiting our organization. And this is something that I've spent a lot of time thinking seriously on, and my goals have always been to recognize the contributions that Rob has made to our organization, to highlight those, and to create as much stability for our staff and our organization as possible in a process of change, while also retaining opportunity for the commission to have ability to direct the one key position that we have direct oversight over.
I'll keep it simple. Rob Fix is one of the main reasons the Port of Bellingham is where it is today and has jumped all the hurdles we have to this point in time.
Anything else? Okay. So the motion is for the termination of the executive director effective immediately pursuant to an agreement. Are you going to jump in?
The motion that Commissioner Shepard made was the motion to terminate. Was the motion to terminate the executive director? If you want to amend that motion to execute a mutual separation agreement, you can amend that motion, which would then need to be seconded, and then you can take a vote on that, or you can keep the motion as presented.
Okay, yeah, I will amend that to include the agreement for mutual separation as stated by our attorney.
I will second that. And as a post note, I believe Rob has seen that document. Is that true?
Yes, he has seen a draft of that document.
Okay. Okay. I will call for the vote. Commissioner Shepard?
I'm a yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
Commissioner Bell is a yes. Okay, with that, we are going to adjourn into executive session, and we will reconvene here to announce anything that may come from that. We're not allowed to make decisions of that kind, but we do want to talk about the next step and what some personnel. And I will say this session is to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee per RCW 42.30.110. And at this point, we will take a 30-minute executive session and reconvene here at approximately, we'll do it at 6:15.
Just to clarify, you're recessing into...
I'm recessing this meeting into executive session. I'm here just to say that we are going to extend the executive session another 30 minutes. We will be back by 20 minutes to 7 as we continue our deliberations. We are going to end the executive session and reconvene the public meeting for the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners. We had an extensive discussion in what may be one of the most emotional days I've had since I've been here in the 8 years that I've been here. To discuss the interim with the exit of the executive director, and I'm just going to move that I will just say that we had a long discussion about staff members. We found that Tiffany DeSimone was more than qualified and willing to take the role as an interim director, and that's strictly interim. So I will read a motion that we came up with, and it is that I move that the Commission appoint Tiffany DeSimone to serve as interim executive director, effective immediately, subject to she will serve as interim director until a permanent executive director is selected or until further direction from this commission. Tiffany will report to the commission and that is Commissioner Shepard, Commissioner Briscoe, and Commissioner Bell will have the responsibility and authority delegated to the executive director in the Port Resolution 1106 BB and RTW 53.12270. While serving as the interim executive director, Tiffany will retain her normal responsibilities and will receive additional compensation for this position, and will receive the annualized upkick to $220,000 for the interim period, and we'll prorate that per month, each month for a portion thereof while she's serving as the interim executive director, and will be paid on the same schedule as normal compensation, and the first payment will be June 2025. That is the motion on the floor. Any discussion?
I will second the motion.
Commissioner Briscoe?
I have no discussion.
Tiffany, you think you're well qualified? Thank you for accepting this. I have no discussion either. We can call for the vote. Do I need to read that again?
No, I got it the first time.
Just, lawyer, she hasn't accepted. So the motion is to offer the position, and then that's what the vote is on, is offering it.
Yeah. So that is the motion to offer Tiffany the above described job description and plan. Okay. Commissioner Shepard?
Are we voting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. With that, there's a lot of transition about to happen. Thank you for being willing to step into that. We hope to have this executed quickly this evening or tomorrow, and you will assume those duties tomorrow morning, if that's acceptable to you. Any other discussion?
That's all square? I have none.
Okay, with that, I know there's going to be public comment after the fact, but no, we are going to adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned.